Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Magic World Cup. This is round 2 of stage 1 here on day 2 of the event, and we are watching Team South Africa on your left versus Team Scotland on your right. Team Scotland is, of course, coming off of a top 8 last season. Team South Africa is redeeming a last place finish by the team last year. So this is, really a strong recovery effort by the South African team.
Yeah, they're well on their way. Because it's pool play and they weren't one of the top seeds, they might not even be guaranteed with 2 wins depending on how the matchups play out.
So they were on the bottom of their pool?
Yeah, I think that they were either on the second to last or the last, which is not those aren't the 2 spaces you want to be in.
Easy to fix, just go 3-0.
Yeah, if you go 3-0, you're guaranteed through.
And there we see Andrew Wright playing
A quick
what
precinct
looks
captain.
like a precinct captain. That's a rough card to deal with early, but it's going to get punishing fired.
Yeah, I mean, precinct captain is actually
Annihilating fired. Sorry,
Right,
I'm
right.
combining 2 different cards.
Well, the end result's the same. And precinct captain is a very strong card. I mean, Josh and the U.S. team are actually playing it in their blue-white sideboard. We played it in the Esper deck at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze.
There's a Dagger Drome Imp from Andrew Wright.
And you actually see the one island in Andrew Wright's hand. He's playing 1 off-color land as well as a Demir Guildgate and a Transguild Promenade just to splash Mirko Vosk, the Demir Maze Runner.
That's the Mind Drinker.
Yep. And both players are actually kind of doing the same thing. They're playing an aggressive-ish 2-color deck, both, pretty straight 2 colors, except they have 1 splash card.
But now, when you looked across the South African deck list, the other 2 decks looked to be more 3-color.
Yeah, they looked a lot more split into actual shards as opposed to just being 2 in a splash. It looks like there's a Soul Ransom hiding in the Orzhov deck as well.
There you get a look at Miro Vosk.
Yep. And
Takes the trade there.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty natural trade. I mean, Rakdos Shred Freak is going to hit you for 2 a turn, and even though the Dagger Drum Imp is a 2-point life swing a turn, it looks like this Orzhov deck is actually a little more defensive than a lot of Orzhov decks might end up. So with cards like, as you see, Smog Elemental and Assassin Strike, just 6 mana. When you have a pair of 6-mana cards in hand, you're not looking to race really.
I mean, are you surprised to see a card like Smog Elemental get played in with so many deep card pools?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the card. I mean, it's a good sideboard card, but as a main deck card, it's just a little too expensive for what it does. If it cost 5, for example, it would be fairly strong. Right. At 6, I think that they're making some sacrifices to play a 2-color deck, which I do like doing. So, as we talked about before, the team with the most 2-color decks has done the best so far.
It looks like Master of Cruelties has just hit the battlefield.
Yeah, that's not only a powerful card, it's a kind of confusing one. What it does is it not only hits them to 1, but it actually doesn't do any damage. Of course, it looks like its flesh just got devoured, but it is the kind of card that you either want to chump it immediately so you don't go to 1, or just take it the first time, go to 1, but knowing that the master itself can't kill you.
You see quite a controlling hand by Andrew Wright there.
Yeah, he is in pretty good shape here. I mean, he doesn't actually have anything on the board yet, but his hand has two pretty strong removal spells, plus the Grizzly Spectacle he just drew. So it looks like actually a full grip.
But does he have the 2nd black to be able to cast that? I can't see. Is that?
Yeah, he's got a Transguild Promenade hiding out under one of those planes.
Okay.
So he's ready to go. This is also
another confusing card, the Volatile Rig.
Yeah, it's it very explicitly puts the game up to a coin flip sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes 2.
Yeah. Sometimes you're in a spot where you lose to the 1 out of 4 of them losing both flips, or losing one and winning the other, et cetera, et cetera. It does have a number of different outcomes every combat.
Right. So if it dies, it double pyroclasms and does 4 damage to each player. Sometimes.
Half the time.
Yeah.
More or less than half the time, depending on the player. But it looks like Andrew Wright's teammate just instantly points out you should just be, assassin striking that thing as fast as you can.
So now when it dies,
now we get to see it.
I'm sorry, Judge. He's rolling a die here.
Yeah. Well, the die was off screen, but we don't actually know what each result meant anyway, since the players would have had to determine that. So
It looks like neither player took damage. I'm guessing nobody took damage there.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
So a little bit of creature control in the form of creatures there for Alan Hutton as well.
Yeah, with a Slum Reaper, and then he's got Cinder Elemental. So they're both, it's like a Diabolic Edict and a Fireball in creature form. I do think that this game is playing a little more towards what the Orzhov deck wants to do. Andrew writes, again, because he's not that aggressive, he's actually looking to control the game and have a slow game, and the Rakdos deck is most certainly not, especially if you're splashing Teleportal. Teleportal is not the kind of card you want when your opponent's at 20 life.
Right, Teleportal, my Cinder Elemental, get you for 3.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll take 5 and draw a card there. Yep. Got a 9.
Getting milled for 2.
He seems fairly excited about the cards that got milled away.
Yeah,
but I
cracked
think
a
that,
smile as he
think that
milled
might
a
have been sarcastic.
Racketeer in a Swamp. Hey, he's not really hoping to draw either of those cards. I guess Racketeer would be decent-ish. Ephraim makes fun of me because I described using Rewind and Standard as broken-ish, so every time I say something that's good, he's like, is it broken-ish? Yeah, Slum Reaper not the best play into an empty board. We've got basically draw going. I mean, the Smog Elemental is just going to come out because it costs 6 mana. You can't really sandbag it. And the Rakdos deck generally doesn't have opportunity for very many flyers. So if you're waiting on Smog Elemental, I'm not sure exactly what you'd be waiting for.
And if your opponent's going to use a removal spell on a Smog Elemental, you got to feel like you're winning.
Yeah, and that's reasonably likely to happen here. I mean, you can just going ahead and taking the opportunity to Slum Reaper. It seems like the safe play.
Right. You can Slum Reaper it and then play a Rixmati Guildmage.
Yep, and Rixmati Guildmage is a very good card. It actually is striking how well designed it is because of how much it encapsulates what the Rakdos deck actually wants to do. So,
attacking and making you die.
Yeah, I mean it's a Guildmage, and normally the Guildmages are like 2/2s for 2, but then later in the game they have these expensive abilities that really take the game over. This is the opposite. It's a 2/2 for 2 that lets you attack on turn 3 and 4 very easily.
He functions on curve.
Yeah, I think that actually she.
Oh, she, yeah.
As someone who always points out if you in an article you use the wrong pronoun, but yeah, she's good on turn 2 and she's actually really good late too. So she kind of does double duty, though she is less powerful than something like a Vidu-Ghazi Guildmage when you have 12 mana out.
Right.
Well, luckily for the South African team, we've got still a pretty good answer to it in a 1,000 Lashes.
But instead he just uses Toxic Fumes, which is, perfectly one of the reasons, if you're arguing about whether or not you like that card, it kills Guildmages is generally the swaying argument.
Yeah, and drawing the Fatal Fumes and using it is definitely right. I mean, it kills only 2 toughness creatures, so you'd rather use it on a 2/2 and have your opponent play a 6/4 next turn, and then you can 1,000 Lashes that.
Right. It can kill bigger creatures. It just requires some actual combat.
Well, there's a lone bomber squad, pretty far away from a battalion, and not incredibly likely to get lashed here. Though Devour Flesh, another one, is a good answer to it, just because Devour Flesh isn't targeted, so you don't really have an option. If you're going to kill their worst creature, you might as well kill their only creature. I mean, I think it's perfectly justifiable to take a point of damage here, but I would rather just Devour Flesh, and you're not really getting better than that.
Yeah, no one wants to go back down to 20 in this match.
Yeah, of course not. So this is where Mirko Voss comes in. Though actually it looks like a Vizkopa Confessor, which is not a bad card. I mean, it's not really going to get anything here since Hutton is only holding, a pair of lands. But it will give you a 1/3 with Extort, so.
He pays 2 life to get a look at those lands.
Yeah, which definitely is the best option here. You never know what your opponent could be holding in. It's not like he doesn't have life to spare.
And he does get to exile it, so.
Yeah, take that. This is the Devour Flesh mirror here. Looks like it. And, a reason to do this main phase is that with Extort out, you really want to just kill your opponent's creatures now, since if he draws and plays a spell, it's too late to stop Extort, so. not groundbreaking, but often it is better to wait on a removal, and in this case, it's not. Looks like a Keening Apparition, which is serving its main purpose as a 2/2 beater here.
While we're waiting for someone to dip below 20 on the front table, on the back table, South Africa's Craig Leach has taken a 1-game lead on Bradley Barkley.
Yeah, and we're not in any hurry to get below 20 here. we're a few turns out at the very least.
Craig Leach is playing the Jund deck for South Africa?
Yeah, it looks like he's got a fairly mid-rangey Jund deck with like Gyre Sage and Ogre Jailbreaker. You know, more towards red-green, but splashing black. But because he's splashing cards like, Corrosive de Guildmage and Corrosive de Gorgon, it's definitely what I would call mid-range more than anything else.
Bradley Barkley's playing Simic for Scotland.
Yeah, and Scotland actually has 3 2-color decks, or very, very close to him. I mean, I count the 2 colors plus 1 card as a 2-color deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
The extorting may resume here with nice Basilica Guards.
Killing Glare in hand.
Yeah, I think they're debating whether or not to kill the Basilica Guard, since killing the Keening Apparition doesn't really accomplish much, especially since Scotland has drawn a Grim Roustabout, which they can play without unleashing it, and they just have a blocker for the Apparition.
Well, again, he's got Mirror of Vosk, right, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but they don't know that. Unlike the World Championship, they don't actually have deck lists here, so you see very different plays than you would.
Well, which player is running the Mirror of Vosk?
It's the Orzhov deck.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah, the Rakdos deck is splashing the Teleportal.
Oh, that's right.
They're both splashing for a blue card or two. And actually looks like South Africa has drawn the Soul Ransom. Not that you really want to steal the Grim Roustabout necessarily, but it is worth considering. Looks like the Syndicate will be enforcing here. That is another reason to Vizkopa Confess your opponent, by the way. Soul Ransom does reward you for emptying your opponent's hands. It just turns into straight-up control magic. With I think Wright is going to be fairly content just to sit here and extort. He doesn't really need to go on the offensive. And with 2 sick removal spells in hand, he doesn't really need to worry about, dying to a Grim Roustabout.
You just got to look at Coach Bruce Raw.
Yeah, Bruce in the Raw. The attack there is good, too. You're not really worried about getting attacked back by Grim Roustabout, not into a 1/4 and a 3/2. So cutting off your opponent's mana a little bit, there's no reason not to. It's just kind of free. It reduces the chances that he can cast an end-of-turn Thought Flare.
Oh, there we see a Hypersonic Dragon by Alan Hutton.
Another nice splash card. So he'd be dragging down Andrew Wright to 19 here, but not for very long. I mean, the Extort's going to knock him up above 20 again once he either takes it or lashes it. And, yeah, I would say that taking it seems like a good play. It gets past the Grim Roustabout. It's a threat, and even if it gets given back to you, at least you got to Mind Rot your opponent and cast Divination.
Yeah.
Both of which are spells I like casting.
Let's see if he plays his land here.
Ooh,
he does.
he does.
Oh, no.
I mean, it makes sense that he does, because now he has Kill and Glare. When you have an X spell in your hand, then the natural conclusion is that you should play other lands, and he has a Regenerator, now he can regenerate twice. So I think it's actually right for him to play the land. It's just much better for his opponent that he did.
Yeah.
And I think Andrew Wright is untapping fairly happily here. Prophetic Prism is another card you want to put in your Orzhov deck if you can, because it's a free extort. It just works a lot better in the deck that likes just cycling and extorting, whereas all the other decks just cycle off it. Obviously, the color issues in your decks dictate that more, but...
So, steal your guy, double extort you.
Not make use of the haste, unfortunately, but...
Yeah.
There's Scotland determines what exactly is that card that's going on there. I mean, Soul Ransom is a confusing card, in the best circumstances.
So your opponent can discard 2 cards and force you to sacrifice it.
Right, and so they have to discard the 2 cards. It's not like they it's not like you mind routed your opponent when they have 1 card in hand. They actually have to have 2 cards discard. It's a cost, and then you get to draw 2 cards. So it actually makes this a lot more balanced. I mean, that sounds pretty punishing.
I also really like the phrase "only any opponent."
Yeah. It is. That's a very. I mean, templating leads to some awkward phrasing, but this is a lot more balanced than a mind control. Just because even though it is very punishing to get 2 cards down and 2 cards up there, you can actually fight against it. It's strictly worse than a mind control.
Well, and you see the cards in Alan Hutton's hands are fantastic, right? It's Killing Glare and Punish the Enemy.
Yeah.
He certainly doesn't want to discard those here.
No, and he's not incredibly likely to do so, but sometimes when you're behind, if you cast Soul Ransom, it just doesn't do anything. Your opponent can just pitch 2 cards, and you spent your turn 4 or your turn 5 casting a spell that really didn't do much. Like when you're getting attacked, you don't really want to cast Divination plus Mind Rot, as much as I always want to cast Divination plus Mind Rot. So now Scotland has a tough decision.
I was just going to say, like, half the audience spit out their morning coffee, as you said.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to cast them, but I know that I shouldn't. So it looks like Scotland is just going to start using their removal spells, starting by punishing the Syndicate Enforcer, the only very good target for it. They might be able to try riding this out, like killing the Syndicate Enforcer, being able to block the Keening Apparition, and then...
Right, he still has a couple turns of damage he can just take from the dragon.
Taking 8 from the dragon, probably, and discarding his next 2 cards. That doesn't leave him in a great spot, but...
do you consider just killing the dragon?
The problem is if you kill the dragon, you then end up at nothing, whereas discarding 2 cards to basically play a dragon is kind of worth it. Of course, your opponent does get to draw 2 cards here, and your opponent is already ahead, so I think South Africa is pretty happy with this situation.
So Alan's going to fall to 13 here.
And any spell is good when you have an extort creature out, but this is actually a pretty nice spell in its own right.
Well, that seemed to go very quickly. Craig Leach has taken Game 2 and the match against Bradley Barkley on the back table.
Yeah, looks
so
like
the Jund deck has defeated the Simic deck.
I guess Jund is a good matchup against Simic.
It's kind of how it would play in Standard too, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are some pretty sweet-looking Simic decks, but I don't think that Jund is the underdog there. And South Africa looks like they're in a pretty commanding commission here, with up a match and what looks like to be likely up a game. I mean, there's still a lot of play left here, but South Africa's certainly ahead.
Balustrade Spy comes down. He's also, he's working on a couple of different
yeah. I mean,
angles here.
With Mirko Vosk in your deck, I mean, your opponent's deck size does matter. You do eventually want to just mill them out. So Alan can also, I think he's under enough pressure here that he's probably going to have to just discard the 2 cards here to Soul Ransom or just cast Killing Glare. I don't think he can afford to do another turn of nothing.
Right.
Like, if he does that, he takes 6 going to 5 and faces down an extort creature as well as multiple spells in hand. I mean, he doesn't know their spells. They could just be sandbag lands, but when you have an extort creature out, you generally don't sandbag your lands very often.
Okay. So in the middle table, things have not moved anywhere yet. They're everyone's just like kind of waiting for traffic to clear up.
Yeah, it looks like, we're looking at one of the other views, and there's a lot of cards in play. We don't know which ones, but there are a lot of them.
So Andrew Wright untaps. You could tell his miracle conditioning.
Yeah. I think that's good practice.
There's a Tithe Drinker, one of the premium Orzhov cards.
Yes, this drinks your opponent's milkshake very quickly. We've got so it looks like he goes to attack, and the ransom is paid. And of course, he has to do that before his opponent attacks. If Alan doesn't do it before Andrew attacks, then the Balustrade Spy does get to get in past the dragon.
Yeah.
You also do want to do it beginning of combat, so your opponent can't play any sorcery speed removal spells, which Andrew does actually have in his hand. Though, as it turns out, Alan's going to have a tough time beating it even without that.
It's like, oh, by the way, now I'm going to 1,000 lashes your dragon and extort you for 2.
Yeah, after playing Tithe Trigger and extorting for 1. And Thousand Lashes essentially extorts twice, once every turn
Right,
too.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you don't gain a life, but that's not a resource that Andrew's short on right now. You know what a good draw here would be? It would be
Active treason.
Yep. Just thinking that. It's just a classic play. When you have a Keening Apparition in play, it's actually kind of dangerous because if you have an enchantment out and your opponent active treasons it,
Yeah.
that enchantment's going away one way or the other. And of course, it's better for you just to sacrifice it because not only is your opponent going to, they could even attack with the Keening Apparition first.
Alan's squeezing his one card here.
Yeah. I'm not sure what he's hoping for. I mean, Teleportal's not really what he's looking to draw. A removal spell that can kill his own dragon or kill the opposing extort creatures. That card had text on it. It doesn't just tap for mana, so it's already a 2-point fireball here. And the spy gets to get in unhindered as well. And again, you see, and we'll see this more in the later rounds too, the team that's even very much ahead is being very precise in their actions. And that's just a natural thing to do, especially in a team event. When you're playing for your country, when you don't want to let the other guys in your team down, even when you're winning by a lot, which Andrew Wright is, you really want to make sure you don't screw up. I mean, the games that you feel the worst about are the games where you're ahead and you throw it away.
We joked about this, about not wanting to be the guy with Pack Rat who loses. But yeah, you do not want to fumble away a game. I mean, I'm sure everybody at home can think about some instance where they were playing a game of Magic that they were confident they were going to win, and they just kind of let their attention flit away for a second, and everything collapsed.
Poof. Just like,
Yeah.
And see, even though like you might, if you're looking at like percentages to win for each player, even if Andrew Wright was say 92% or 95% to win this game, that means that there are avenues where he loses, and you don't want to let your opponent go down one of those avenues.
Sure. I mean, what happens if a Mizium Mortars got pulled off the top here?
Right. That would go a long way. I mean, it would still be an uphill battle, which is tough considering Mizium Mortars is one of the best cards in the format, but. If all of Andrew's creatures eventually just immediately went to the graveyard and then Alan drew a way to maybe sacrifice the dragon, we actually have a game.
Right.
So you want to make sure, is it right to commit this card? Is this attack right? And as it turns out, well, it looks like Alan must have something here if he's blocking the 2-2 instead of the 2-1. And he does. Ooh. It's not Mizium Mortars, it's the baby Mizium Mortars.
It's the Mizium Lesters.
Yeah. They're actually potentially debating not playing it here. Yeah, it looks like so.
Oh, he's like, don't show him that card.
Yeah, it's a good plan. Scotland did draw Electrickery that turn, but playing it there would have likely not gotten them back into the game. And Electrickery is definitely a card you don't want your opponents to know about, since it's a card that's fairly easy to avoid getting blown out by. But if you don't know that it's there, you might play into it.
While that was wrapping up, it sounds like on the middle table, Harris Fong took game 1 against Jamie Ross. We'd like to thank Gaming Etc. for being an official card retailer here at Worlds Week. Use the promo code WorldCup when ordering at GamingEtc.com and earn 10% off all singles and accessories. For more information, visit GamingEtc.com. As we're keeping the lights on, the camera went over to the middle table here.
With Harris Fong up a game with his, looks like Bant deck. So again, South Africa going with more of a 3-color approach.
Right, and Jamie Ross for Scotland is playing 2 colors. He's a Selesnya deck. It looks like he's got, Armored Wolf Rider, which is a card I saw a lot of on the floor when we were going around. He's got Pit Fight for a trick. He does have an Unflinching Courage.
Yeah, and actually, Harris Fong is kind of base Bant. That's what like most of his lands tap for. But he's playing the actual Gatekeeper deck with multiple Ceruli Gatekeepers and kind of aiming to play all the cards that the other decks couldn't play.
Right, it's the kitchen sink deck.
Yeah, I mean these decks ended up. It looks like still pretty close to just Bant, but just playing off-color Guild Gates that all they do is power up your Gatekeepers here. And he's,
So what does he have? What gatekeepers does he have besides the Ceruli? Any that?
It looks like he's got the 2 Ceruli gatekeepers, and other than that, I believe those are the only gatekeepers in his deck. So and you can tell that is one of the things he was thinking about because he didn't play both Is It Guild Gates, only one. So he wasn't going full on, play every single gate. Once you have 4 gatekeepers, you just play all your gates. You play 10 gates almost. Like you'd play like probably 9, maybe the max, but he's content just to play looks like 5 gates here instead of the full 6. And he's playing a bunch of, all the on-color gates. 4 of his gates are on-color. He's just playing 1 off-color gate.
Okay.
Just as kind of a concession to wanting to gain 7 life every now and then.
Does he have a species gorger?
No, but he has a double Deputy of Acquittals here. So that is already a fairly good combo.
Deputy of Acquittals is just a nice little card in general.
Yeah, it's one of the 2-drops I really like. It's kind of like Corpse Hauler in M14, where on turn 2 it's a 2/2 or a 2/1.
Right.
It attacks your opponent. If they don't have a creature in play, it's good.
I was watching Team Israel building their decks, and one of the Shahar was laying out their Azoria stack, and he had Deputy Acquittals, and Susat and one of his teammates was like, no, this is actually like a 4 or 5 drop, and he's like, no, it's actually a 2 drop. It doesn't have to return anything. And, we can just play it and, try to kill someone. There we get a look at Jamie Fong's hand. I'm sorry, I'm combining players there. Harris Fong's hand.
Yeah.
Just very Simic of me to just combine them into one.
And getting a little feedback, Dave Williams actually points out on Twitter that Mind Drop plus Divination is otherwise known as Probe. I don't know how I left off Probe with Kicker there, but that is a very, very good point.
You must have played during the Probe era.
I did. I wasn't very good then, so
you didn't
even
fully
though
appreciate it.
I was aware of all these things, I was not necessarily was the one always casting the Probe.
Was this still your early Elephant phase?
it was getting there, yeah. So, looks like Ceruli Gatekeepers will gain some life if it ever gets drawn here.
Crawl Warrior, one of my favorite cards in this block for limited.
Yeah, it's again, like we're exactly what we were talking about, a good 2-drop and good later.
Right.
And it actually ends up being very good later, as turning into a 5/5 all of a sudden. It's kind of like a more extreme version of Rootwalla.
Yeah. It just gives you something to do with all that mana.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that Rootwalla costs an extra mana to begin with makes it a much less effective early card, but it's much better in the mid game because it only costs 2 to pump. Whereas this is a better early card and a better late card, but in the mid game, it's not always as effective. Looks like I got a Wayfaring Temple there with a die to mark how big it is currently, though not actually marking any counters, which could
get confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, I never put any die on my cards, or dices. But I suppose it would be dice. But on my cards, unless they have counters, but I certainly don't fault players who like to do so. Speaking of counters.
Yeah. Well, another card that I really like, Ivy Lane Denizen.
Yeah, and
whenever you play a green creature, whenever a green creature comes into play, you can put a counter, a +1/+1 counter on target creature.
Yeah, just anytime whenever a creature enters play, not actually, like you said, you don't actually have to cast it.
Right.
As long as it enters play on your side, you end up getting a counter. So it's good with maybe if you draft the full Ravnica Block Scatter the Seeds, but the full Ravnica Block.
Wow. Here we see Unflinching Courage on the Wayfaring Temple.
Yeah, so I think Fong's draw is not quite the way they may have drawn it out, because playing an Unflinching Temple, or rather a Wayfaring Temple is a 1/1, and then putting Unflinching Courage on it as a defensive play, not really how you want to start games.
Are you all over the Smite here if you're Jamie or us?
Yeah, I think he has actually kind of figured out that could be something that Harris has. One potential play would have been to attack with the Crawl Warrior first. Of course, he could want to just put the counter on the Ivy Lane Denizen and attack. Okay, he's actually just offering the trade, but it looks like there's not going to be a whole lot of counterplay here. We could have an interesting situation where Fong goes to block, and then Jamie can either pump Crawl Warrior or not, and if they're going to trade, and if he pumps it, Smite's much better against him, but they're just straight up trading his 3/3 for a Smite, which is good.
Right. In the meantime, Jamie's slime molding to make a 5/5 token.
Yeah, things are about to get a a little nastier here for
Oh, boy.
for Jamie as Knightly Valor comes up, makes the Wayfaring Temple bigger because it's +2/+2, and bigger because it puts a knight into play.
He's playing the Banchantment deck.
Yeah, it's kind of like Bant, not hexproof, which doesn't sound as cool, huh? Oh man.
Bant eminently targetable deck.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Jamie just drew a pretty good one himself. Yeah. The Angels decree that that Wayfaring Temple is going to leave here, and that opens the door for a swing for 7. Harris was a little short of being able to attack last turn. If he attacked, then Jamie could double block and essentially trade a 5/5 for the 7/7 lifelink trample, which is
gladly double block.
yeah,
right?
not a great trade, or a 6/6 lifelink trample. Well,
Yes.
things are not close to over yet, though, since Harris Fong also has a sign of Vitu-Ghazi in his hand.
Well,
Gets to detain the 5/5 and smash in for 2 with the knight.
you see the Deputy of Quittles we'd mentioned earlier. Oh, no, that is a...
That's an Imara Tandris, actually, the guild leader of Celestia, with a very relevant ability here. It's going to make this 5/5 token
indestructible.
Yeah, so
Or it's not quite indestructible. It's
yeah, she.
can't die from damage.
Let's just take a look here,
Yeah.
since I believe it's indestructible, but it could just be that they're unable to be damaged. Either way, it's going to end up the same against most situations here, but yeah, it looks like she prevents all the damage dealt to tokens you control.
Right.
So she also puts a counter on Ivy Lane Denizen when she comes into play.
My dream is to Stolen Identity a Imara Tandris and then bury the original.
And then keep the token.
Yeah, keep the token.
That's clever. I like the double block there. Trade it. You'd gladly trade a 3/3 flyer for the 3/4 Ivy Lane Denizen, especially since, as Jamie plays more and more creatures, it's going to get more and more value.
Here comes the Scion of Vitu-Ghazi.
Which actually has the option to populate here. It can populate a knight, which Harris elects to do.
Right, so you get a 1/1 flying bird token and then populate, but he chooses the knight that was already in play from the
Yeah, sometimes
enchantment a couple turns
most
back.
of the time you get a 1/1. Sometimes you get a knight. Sometimes you get a 5/5 trampling worm.
Yeah.
Ooh. It looks like Scotland's got some rares and mythics over there. We've seen a lot of Voice of Resurgence in the other rounds, but it's the first time I've seen it out in limited here.
And his opponent's going, how about you double block? And he's like, how about I don't throw 2 of my guys in front of an indestructible token?
Exactly, yeah. And that's where, a teammate points out plays that maybe you thought of and dismissed, but it's better than, them not pointing out anything. I mean, sometimes it can be actively harmful, but it's better that they're thinking about the game and paying attention as opposed to not.
Sunspire Griffin joins the team.
Oh, and Harris Spong's looks like he does have a Sunspire Gatekeepers there. We have a whole knight army here. It's
Right, and a Greenside Watcher also comes down.
50% more than a Knight's Watch. But Imara Tandris is actually kind of dominating this game. She's allowing that 5/5 token to just rumble every turn. Sunspire Griffin going to get a nice free 2 points of damage too. And this is where, it's handy for Jamie that he's so far ahead in life. Otherwise, he may have been concerned about potential, alpha
Getting
strikes
overrun,
or something along those lines. But
A ready and willing.
yeah, that would be nice.
Sure.
Pops his Clue Stone to draw a card. One of the really nice things about this format has been the Clue Stones, like that ability to go, I need something to get me from 3 to 5 mana to do like some of the clumsier things in my deck, but later in the game, just to be able to pop it and draw a card when you no longer need that extra mana.
Yeah, I think I like where the Cluestones landed. I think the signets from original Ravnica had a slightly...
Have spoiled us?
Yeah, I think for limited they were good. They were maybe, there's an abundance of mana fixing. Everyone got to do what they wanted. For constructed, though, the signets actually had kind of a pretty severe effect on deck building. It's really hard to justify playing cheap spells when you can just ramp into big spells with the power of signets.
Right.
So Cluestones kind of hit. They're obviously not quite as good, but they certainly make the games less prone to flooding, and I like the options they give you in limited.
Yeah. And then, and there's a Debtor's Pulpit, which is a nice way for him to deal with that token that's been giving him fits and whittling down his Night's Watch.
Yeah, I think that was good. I may have considered putting it on.
Right. Oh, and it's on a gate, so he can greenside watch it and tap 2 things.
I was gonna say I may consider putting it on the Celestia Guild gate because he has only 2 blue lands and a bunch of green and white lands, but I think, or I guess maybe he has a second Azorius Guild gate, so it's pretty close either way. But he does get to tap both his opponent's creatures here. And Jamie Ross would like an elemental token. He requests that you give him one immediately. In this case, it would be like a 7/7 and or a 6/6, and be pretty difficult to kill with a Maritandris in play. And Bant's not really like flush with answers to kill a giant creature here.
Yeah, he takes it though.
Yeah, he might as well.
Which means he'll essentially be taking 2 damage from the Sunspire Griffin for the next couple turns, unless he finds a way to deal with that.
Yeah,
because he'll be able to tap the 2 token creatures.
Yeah, so I mean, his options are basically to.
He forgot to evolve his Krakenara. Yeah,
it looks like he did. Yeah. Which, evolving off the Voice of Resurgence is actually kind of one of the keys to Craig Wesco's deck that he won Pro Tour Dragon's Maze with.
Right. Yeah, we saw him doing some really crazy stuff with that and the Experiment 1s.
Yeah, especially depending on like your opponent wraths, you regenerate Experiment 1, dropping it down to like a 1/1, and then the Elemental token comes into play, re-evolves it. So yeah, it looks like Greenside Watcher locking down the Griffin and probably just content to chump the Elemental token here.
But he's getting pretty close to the point where that Maritandris can start attacking in. It's got 7 toughness.
Yeah,
and Harris is at 5. He can't afford to put multiple creatures in front of something.
Yeah, we're getting fairly close to where Jamie might just start attacking with basically everything. Though you really don't want to risk a Maritandris if you don't have to, just because it's kind of what's like letting you drive your offense. But he's getting to the point where his creatures are so big that even if they didn't take damage, Harris would be hard-pressed to actually kill them, since he's had to chump block numerous times over the last couple turns. Harris did draw a Deputy of Acquittals, which means he gets a kind of free block here this turn. He gets to block with Sunspire Gatekeepers, bounce it with the Deputy, the next turn make another Knight. So he's going to be able to keep himself alive for a reasonable amount of time here.
Puts the Scion in.
Yeah, I guess bouncing the Scion also quite effective. Gets you double the chump blockers. Smite, not really what you want when you're beating down. I mean, it's still a nice card to have, better than drawing a land, but I think Jamie would prefer to draw a combat trick of some kind.
Yeah, there's not going to be a lot of combat going on Harris's turns.
No, not quite yet. So we didn't have Voice of Resurgence out still. Would have gotten it could have gotten another token off that play there. And this time, again, it's just the birds. I mean, the Smite does mean that if Harris starts to make a comeback, you've got a good answer to whatever he attacks with. So it is a kind of an insurance policy if things go badly, though. When you're ahead, you'd rather draw cards that let you press the advantage, like a
like a pit fight.
Like a pit fight, yeah.
I don't think any of your guys are ready to get into the ring with my 7/7 Elemental.
That doesn't take damage.
That doesn't take damage, yeah. But just in case. Would you consider just killing the Greenside Watcher?
Yeah, I think that is something he's fairly likely to do. I think Jamie's going to want to get Greenside Watcher off the board. Likely at the end of Harris's turn, though. You might as well not give him the advance notice that this is happening. Harris is just gelling, but still in a lot of trouble, actually.
Gelling Sphinx. Which, by the way, is a perfectly reasonable smite target with that Krakenara should the game go another couple of turns.
Yeah, and it's a very strong card, so he also gets to attack for free a lot of the times because there's Vigilance, Flying, and 5 toughness, but now looks like Scullin's just trying to make sure what can go wrong with this pit fight. I mean, Pit Fight is one of those cards that when things go wrong, they go really wrong. Your opponent bounces your creature and you lose a bunch of cards, but there really isn't much that can happen here.
Yeah.
Yep, and there goes the green-sided Watcher. Might as well untap a gate on its way out, but I guess if Harris has nothing to cast, it doesn't really matter. It's free, though.
But yeah, it's free, and you can represent that maybe you have something.
Yeah, also it's free. Things that are free are good.
I've generally not found that to be true, but, you know, in Magic it's a little different.
Okay, while you're playing Magic, that's very, that's true. When you're not playing Magic, I guess I have actually tended to prefer paying for things rather than getting them free, just because the things people are giving away on the street might not always be your best option.
They're in the which chump blocker do we use phase of the game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we're displaying cards that are played in this tournament. Otherwise, I'd show the Abyss. That's what.
Do we need a bigger range of stuff in the card picker for you so you can start amusing yourself?
It makes it more efficient for trying to find cards immediately, but I do like referring to Time Walks and Abysses because these are actually the fundamentals of Magic. Like, I mean, it is funny that we're talking about a card from Legends, but the Abyss destroys a creature every upkeep. And when someone talks about, being abyssed, it just means that your opponent's forcing you to chump every turn.
Right.
It's like,
and then you talked about Time Walks.
And Time Walk is...
And then Cerulean Gatekeepers
Yeah,
just
there you
gain
go.
7 life. That's like a whole extra turn here.
Yeah, Time Walk is a super common one. I actually use Time Walk to describe things that happen to me in life. Like, missing the tram this morning could have been a Time Walk, right? Like, when you have to waste 15 minutes of your time, it's kind of like, your opponent took an extra turn. So...
Yeah. I think we like different cards. I think of that as a Solfatara.
Well, yeah, I guess if you want to go that deep, but a mental Magic staple, Solfatara. So Harris Fong's added more creatures to his board, but he's fallen further and further behind every turn. And Jamie Ross, it looks like he's actually, if he wasn't already winning, he would be ready
Giant Adaphage?
Yeah, he would be ready to go off here as a Giant Adaphage, slams down. Centaur's Herald bringing in another token.
So they've gone for the unusual fat token archetype.
Yeah, I mean, Celestia is the guild that actually kind of promotes that. It's funny because Celestia has so many giant growths and pump spells that you kind of think of it as the 2-drop into 3-drop into giant growth.
I think of the Crawl Warriors and the Croconoras and...
Yeah, the Keening Apparitions and Azorius Arresters into Common Bond, Giant Growth, Corsamite. But there's the other way to build Celestia, which is just to play giant things, stall the game, and then, win, like with Croconuras, and then win the game with Emeritandrous tokens and giant Adaphages. Did you know the giant Adaphage tokens are also protected for for whatever that's worth? Speaking of free things, the Centaur attack is free here, but it's not going to accomplish a whole lot. I mean, there's no risk to it since it can't take damage, but there's, 4 different creatures on Harris's side that he could just block with.
I mean, do you worry at all about a Supreme Verdict or?
Yeah, I think that a Giant Adaphage might be one you want to sandbag because that is a card that will win the game by itself, and you're not really close to losing. This also taps you out from being able to regenerate the Celestia Sentry, and Supreme Verdict's one of the few cards you could actually lose to in this spot. I mean, Harris doesn't have it, and
go to Scoop Phase.
Go to Scoop Phase has been called, so it looks like that was not in his future.
So Jamie Ross evens it up at the middle table, 1 apiece. South Africa has the only match win thus far on the back table, with Craig Leach defeating Bradley Barkley. So we are going to go back to the front table and check in again on Andrew Wright for South Africa versus Alan Hutton for Scotland. And again, we talked earlier about this, South Africa redeeming themselves after last year's last place finish. Just got to be tremendously exciting for this. Magic 2014 is available now in Magic Online. Cracks and packs for M14 Booster Draft and Sealed Deck Qs right now. Starting August 2nd, you can enter 64-player Premier Drafts and Top 8 Sealed Deck events to earn invitations to the Magic 2014 Release Events Championship, which is going to be played on August 18th. For more information, visit mtgonline.com.
I've always been a big fan of Magic Online, and as I've said many times, it kind of what took me and Paul Cheon's game to the next level. Like,
right. I mean, you were the original Reed Duke in some ways. You know what I mean?
Actually, I was almost the original. It was like me and then Brad Nelson,
right,
and then Reed Duke
and Raptor.
Yeah, definitely Raptor. Like as you look at a lot of these guys, like that is kind of what turned players from like good to decent to just great.
Yeah, and if you play somewhere, like if you're in South Africa, maybe you don't have as much access to Grand Prix and live competition. I mean, Magic Online is a way you could just play against the best players in the world.
Yeah, all the time. So
I mean, certainly at any hour of the day, Paul Cheon is apparently streaming Magic Online.
Yeah, he recent fatherhood has.
I was just going to say that may change.
Well, or it might mean that he's home from work and gets to stream more. So
congratulations to Paul Cheon and his wife on the birth of their first child, Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle. So pretty awesome. I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah.
But
I can't wait to induct him into the Hall of Fame in 2038.
Yeah, someone said that was pessimistic, but that puts him at 25 years old. That's a pretty young Hall of Fame inductee.
Yeah, I'm assuming first pro tour at the age of 15.
Yeah. So it looks like Alan is kind of ahead here because he's a 6'3" to a 1-1.
Kindish of ahead.
But you got to be a little suspicious when your opponent doesn't attack with Dagger Drum Imp. I guess that just means they're chumping. It could also mean they have Smite. We'll find out shortly what it is.
Or
in this case,
Profit loss.
Profit loss. See, this is a risky play. I mean, I think South Africa, wants to make this play because they don't want to just take 6 every turn, so that's perfectly reasonable. But against a Rakdos deck with 4 cards in hand or 5 cards in hand and all their mana untapped, it's not necessarily going to work. You're hoping that your profit loss goes ahead and lets you trade here, but if there's so many things that can end up making that not the case.
And he's just going to punish the enemy on the Dagger Drum Imp.
Yeah, which is one of the things that happens here. But again,
but you get a 2-for-1. You get the Dagger Drum Imp, you get the profit loss, and you get to do a little extra damage in the process.
Yeah, it was Scotland's profit and South Africa's loss, as it turns out. But I think that South Africa has a backup plan here, a number of them actually.
Tapping a lot of mana. And Assassin Strikes.
Against a deck that has both Assassin Strike and Soul Ransom, I think that Scotland's going to have to prioritize keeping lands in hand. And if they didn't, learn that after the first game, then I think they have by now with the Assassin Strike showing up again.
At 6 land, how much more mana does he need to operate his deck?
Right, like Rick's Mighty Guildmage is one of the reasons. I guess the Street Spasm that he has in hand is another. But still, you get punished pretty hard if you play too many lands, as you saw in game 1.
Do you have a general spot you like to sit on in terms of lands when you're playing in a game like this? That's kind of both of you on an empty board. Is there a number you like? This is where I want to kind of coast your cruise control. Yeah,
the general sweet spot is 1 less than the number of lands you need to cast your most expensive spell. Since if you have 7 drops, stop at 6. Because then if you draw your 7 drop, you just land 7 drops. So as we see. It looks like Scotland decided to Midnight Recovery their Maze Rusher, even though they don't have a creature to cipher onto.
Right, just straight up raise dead.
Yeah, which I think is fine here since they have a Stab Wound and a Street Spasm in hand, so they're not really any closer to drawing another creature, and getting a 6/3 out with 2 removal spells in hand seems okay. Well, it does look like South Africa is kind of holding all the cards again.
We see a 1,000 Lashes, a Soul Ransom, a Bane Alley Blackguard, and Vassal Soul.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if Bane Alley Blackguard actually just jumps in front of the Maze Rusher once it comes out again, since they know it's coming. And though Scotland could potentially use a removal spell if they wished. It's a shame because Bane Alley Blackguard is a very, very good target for Stab Wound.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it means you can't attack them on the ground anymore, but when they're taking 2 a turn, it doesn't take very many turns to lose.
Oh,
so.
Andrew's already at 10.
Yeah. So I think what Scotland's really looking to do here is get like one more hit in with anything and then just stab your opponent to death. So even though they're considering just casting the stab wound now, it's certainly worth also looking at maybe trying to get a hit in with Maze Runner first.
Because it looks like they might be just going the stab wound route here.
Yeah, I mean, that does force South Africa to have a removal spell for their own Bane Alley Blackguard, which is not only good value, it also puts them under a very fast clock.
Right, and obviously Scotland saw South Africa talking about a bunch of different options in their hand, in hand. So maybe he's like, well, I don't want to play my... just plays a rat.
Yeah, it's not the rat, it's just a rat.
Yeah,
but,
a rat,
yeah. Playing the stab wound here, I mean, they've got to figure that South Africa has a bunch of removal spells in hand, so they're just going to play the stab wound and kind of see how that pans out. They're giving up on attacking, but another cool part about Maze Runner is that since it has haste, they can just hold it in their hand. They don't actually need to play it.
Right.
And eventually they might... I guess they figure that South Africa's taking at least 2 from the stab wound, and then if they do remove the Bane Alley Blackguard, they can never tap out because a Maze Rusher could just get in for 6. So just holding it, I think, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. South Africa still ahead in the entire match here with these 2 matches not finishing, but ahead in the other match and up a game here. Vassal Soul is not going to be able to outrace Stab Wound. Stab Wound is, I think, the consensus best common in Return to Ravnica, kind of like at the end of the draft cycle. That's what most people seem to think.
Absolutely. And then we see an Annihilating Fire in hand.
Yeah.
So that's another 3 points of damage. It just shortens the clock.
Pretty good chance we're going to go to game 3 here, depending on what South Africa draws more than Scotland. Scotland kind of has all the cards they need. They just need a couple turns of stabbing to get through. The classic Maze Runner go here. They're being very precise about the upkeep triggers, so you can actually miss stab wound trigger now. If you,
yeah, there's...
With the new trigger rules, if you don't announce it and don't make any indication, your opponent's not beholden to take the damage, and I think they usually choose not to. Yeah, when one of my opponents missed a trigger at Grand Prix Vegas, the judge is like, we called the judge because the triggers were new. My opponent wasn't sure what would happen. The judge asked me, would you like your opponent to draw a card? And I was like, no, I would not like my opponent to draw a card. Those are my options. So they could actually go for a pretty good beatdown here if they
take the Maze Runner, get in for 8.
Yeah, the only problem is that Scotland can't actually just pay for the Soul Ransom here, and here's a case where you can't really rely on Soul Ransom, entirely. But the fact that they have the Bane Alley Blackguard who's really ready to chump gives them, a little bit of a room to work with. And I think if they don't get aggressive, they're not really gonna, have a chance of winning this game. All right. Ship it.
Sounds like somebody killed a turn 2 pack rat on the floor somewhere.
Yeah. Or something equally momentous. So,
or had exact change for the soda machine. Magic players are pretty...
ready to clap and cheer. So here, Scotland, there's no real reason to, beginning of combat, give back the Maze Runner or take back the Maze Runner, since it's not blocking any ground creatures anyway. You might as well see what South Africa attacks with. I mean, you might want to take the Maze Runner back, but the fact that it would be tapped, I don't think is very relevant here. I don't think that Bane Alley Blackguard's coming in with its -1 power.
And so he would throw away Street Spasm and Swamp to do that.
Yeah, definitely Swamp, and I would say that when your opponent's on 6 and you have Stab Wound out, you're going to keep Annihilating Fire pretty much all costs.
Yeah.
So attacks are allowed. South Africa isn't incredibly unhappy if the Maze Runner gets given back. They're not actually winning the race even with it, and drawing 2 extra cards could give them an answer to the Stab Wound.
Would you be surprised if Scotland just took it here, or even just like put the rat in the way?
Yeah, I think those are all pretty viable. I mean, you can go from 19 to 13 without too much fear. Chumping with the rat's fine. I mean, you're generally going to want 6 life more than you want a Gutter Skulk. But I think that their main options are just to take it back now to not take the 6, assuming you're probably going to do that anyway, or just chump.
And he can Street Spasm the Maze Runner too, rather than discarding it and
Yeah, I think you'd really consider that. I don't think you really want to give them 2 extra cards. Like the reason you do that is maybe if South Africa tapped out and you could just win on the board by taking it back. But if you don't take it back end of turn, you can't. You don't get to untap it. So that window is kind of passed. Geez, Ground Rorix, otherwise known as Tenement Crasher.
We like to call him Florix.
Yeah, Florix is a good one too. And trigger happens. So the team's debating that you don't have to say that every upkeep. It's like, well, no, we do. So by not playing Tenement Crasher, Scotland kind of signals their intent to cast the Street Spasm here, which I think you don't want to take 8 damage here if you don't have to. And because you have the Tenement Crasher, you do have another threat. You don't really want to give South Africa 2 cards either. So it looks like they're just taking it and hoping on the stab wound. It looks like it's most likely going to work. I think it might have been a little safer just to kill the 6/3.
Yeah. I guess he was thinking there's a possibility he could steal it, take it back at the end of the turn, and
yeah, that might have been one of his plays. The thing is, with a Tenement Crasher and Electricker and Annihilating, for all of which you're going to want to cast over the next couple turns, not spending 6 mana seems a little tough. You're going to end up, now you're guaranteeing you're going to end the game with cards in hand.
Right. You didn't want to discard that card, but you've essentially discarded it because you don't have the mana or the time to ever use it.
So they're just going to, looks like Scotland's just going to go for the win here, which, I mean, the upkeep is the right time to do it. No reason to give them another chance to, or South Africa another turn to draw a card.
That'll do the trick.
All right. Stab wound, does the dirty deed once again.
Yeah.
Stealing 8 damage just in fairly unstoppable fashion.
It's like the rest of the creatures on Andrew Wright's team are like, he's just laying there bleeding to death. Aren't we going to help him?
Somebody save him.
No.
Or put him out of his misery.
All right, we are going to stay here with this match. Ultra Pro is the leading manufacturer of trading card game sleeves and deck boxes. If you're looking for official Magic 2014 portfolios, card storage boxes, deck boxes, sleeves, playmats, Ultra Pro has you covered. So for more information, visit wizards.com/magic merchandise. So we're going to stay here while these guys head into Game 3.
Yeah, looks like they've got a number of sideboard options. That Midnight Recovery, out of the board. It's a good sideboard card against a control deck with a ton of removal, which is exactly what South Africa has.
Right, if you can find one creature that can live for, it doesn't even have to live for more than a turn, but if you get to pick up 2 creatures with the Midnight Recovery, you've undone a lot of the work that deck is doing. Middle table, Harris Fong versus Jamie Ross. Those guys are also in, I believe, Game 3. And that is another slog in terms of the creatures on the table.
And it looks like word on the floor is that USA and Israel are actually playing for elimination in the next round.
Oh, wow.
So that means US and Israel both need to win next round, and they haven't played each other since it's round robin. They're going to.
Wow.
That's what the chatter's about, at least. So that ought to be a pretty cool match.
2 players who are going to be playing in the World Championship semifinals on Sunday, and Shahar Shenhar and Josh Utterly.
Yeah, so they're actually playing for the right to win both titles. So, I mean...
Only one of them will be able to?
Either of them could be the world champion still. And, and until the end of next round, either of them could be the the World Cup champions or the World Magic Cup champion as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's going to be a big match. I imagine we will have a front row seat.
Yeah, I mean, both players, coming into this event, them and actually Willie Ito and Shi Tian Lee and Stanislav Sivko, they all dreamed, I'm sure, of, as well as Yuya, of, the double crown of winning both events. So, but right now, these are the only 2 players that are going to be playing for elimination in the next round. It looks like Willie is onto the next round as well, though. Nice. It looks like Brazil is locked for the next pod.
It's worth noting also from what I see in the chatter, which is another word for Twitter.
Well, they sound the same.
That both Josh and Shahar are in the B seat.
Yeah, I don't know what decks they ended up with, because I saw them deck build, but I don't actually know how the decks got passed around.
So worth noting here that front table has a little extra time, but on the B table, in the middle table there, time has run out, and they are clinging to dear life there in extra turns.
So yeah, it sounds like Harriswong is behind and trying to not die.
Yeah, yeah. He's at 1. Jamie's at 37. Jamie has almost no risk of dying in those extra turns, but Harris, he's at 1.
So it looks like South Africa is on the beatdown plan here with a turn 2 Tithe Drinker.
Oh,
wow.
Also on the beatdown plan.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Scotland's hand, though. I guess we can now see the Devour Flesh. But even without seeing that, if you're unleashing the Grim Roustabout there, you've got a removal spell. You're not just ignoring the Tithe Drinker.
All right, so Jamie Ross for Scotland has taken that match 2-1. So that evens up the match between South Africa and Scotland at 1 match apiece. And this will be the decider. So this is game 3 of the 3rd match.
Yeah, and I think that the Devour Flesh is something that is, it's not quite as good as it was a turn ago because the Basilica Guards came out. But again, you've got to cast it here, and casting it before you cast Stab Wound is also critical. Since unless you're using Stab Wound as straight up removal, which is not what you always want to do, I think casting Devour Flesh first is something that doesn't work otherwise.
So it sounds like the team is trying to decide beatdown control here.
So it looks like Devour Flesh is actually eating the Basilica Guards, which is kind of the play you'd expect, just because you're almost guaranteed to get in a hit with another lifelink Tithe Drinker there. That you kind of would rather have a 1/4 against a Rakdos deck more often.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Essentially, just when the game slows down, they're both doing the same thing in terms of
just
one
they're extorting.
Yeah, there's a Vassal Soul.
But, if you've got Vassal Soul in your hand, then you're actually looking at kind of presenting an aggressive front even against, even in a deck that is more controllers than that. And it looks like Scotland sided in another nice one for this matchup. Skullrend is not the card that you often see in the main deck.
And there's the Volatile Rig.
Yeah, let's see what it turns this game into. Oh, wow, that was actually a huge draw. That's exactly the best answer to Volatile Rig.
Oh, my gosh.
Just lashing it down. That lets South Africa slam for 4, gain 2 life, and start punishing Alan every turn.
Would you have considered not unleashing the skeleton?
Yeah, I think not unleashing the Grim Roustabout. I mean, even if you did have Devour Flesh in hand, if they play a 3-drop, you're just setting yourself up for multiple hits of Tithe Drinker.
You can't cast a Devour Flesh that turn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the other option is to Devour Flesh the Tithe Drinker right then and there.
Yeah, and if we didn't actually see the sequence, so he might not have had Devour Flesh in his hand. But if he didn't, then maybe you also don't want to unleash that Grim Roustabout. So I think the play he made does run the risk of what exactly happened, which was you get a couple of hits off Tithe Drinker, which wouldn't have happened had he unleashed the Grim Roustabout. So I think his main reasoning for that is that he was a more aggressive deck, which he is, but he kind of set himself up to actually lose a race. Now it's 27-10.
Right.
I'm sure he regrets the 6 life that got drained off the Tithe Drinker. Though a pair of removal spells has made that less...
Trickery for the Tithe Drinker, Killing Glare for the Flyer, and Attack for 2.
Yeah, so luckily Andrew's got the 1,000 Lashes, still kind of doing a little damage over there, just pecking away.
And of course, no shortage of 6-drops.
Yeah, I mean, a pair of 6s, he's got, looks like a 6-mana 3/3 flyers are popular here. Alan going to 9. Well, we're going to see what South Africa's left with here as a...
But again, we talked about the 6-drops in his hand, and obviously Alan has seen that he has some expensive cards. He's got to assume the Skullrend's going to hit something.
Yeah, and it is. So he's hoping not to... South Africa's hoping to not keep the land. Looks like they discarded a land and a Looks like the swarm.
locust, yeah.
Yeah. So you get to scavenge that for 4. So if you draw something.
Oh, and there's Miro Vosk right off the top.
That was not a bad draw.
Time into the round. You have 5 extra turns.
Starting on me.
Scotland does still have that stab wound, but the Locust does let you scavenge, to, not to give him power to really deal damage, but to actually start milling you off.
All right, time has just been called in this round, by the way, and Alan is on turn 0. So
I think this is, it's close. I think it's actually Scotland's game to win here, since South Africa certainly could win the game, but I think the 2 most likely scenarios are Scotland wins or we have a draw. Since I think Scotland's hand, between Stab Wound and Hypersonic Dragon, does give Alan Hutton enough options that he's got paths to win here.
is this going to be Dragon Go or no?
It looks like it was almost attacked for 2, but attacking with that roustabout seems a little optimistic. I mean, your opponent's at 21. He'll just take the 4 and eat the roustabout.
Yeah, let's see. You're tapped out, and
All right, so cooler heads prevailed. As I'm sure Murray stepped in, is like, I don't think you want to do that. So with 5 lands in play and a 1 in hand, so that's 6 lands. Presumably playing 17, so it leaves 11 lands. That means you can survive 2 hits from Mirko, and the 3rd will be lethal. Doesn't really matter what order they mill in here.
there's a Devour Flesh, which is
So Mirko's actually going for the kind of unknown damage kill here. Just hitting, actually just going to be hitting for 5 damage.
Yes, I should definitely point at the dragon.
No, I'm showing you.
Scotland. I mean, you got to go for it, I guess. But they're debating whether South Africa pointed at their own dragon, but that was not really what they were looking for. So,
I believe you used the phrase "cooler heads prevailed" before.
so I
1 land.
I didn't really count on Scotland
2
bashing
land.
and actually just
3
getting hit
land,
for 5
there's
back.
4 land. Yep.
I figured that might not have been their play, but it looks like that they're actually not very likely to win here. So looks like South Africa might actually be the winner. We'll see very shortly. So this is the time has been called. So this is what, turn 1 or 2?
This is turn 2.
Okay, so this is turn 2, which
So,
actually means South.
Andrew will have 2 more turns
So actually,
to finish the game.
unless Alan. Would Alan only can't die from Thousand Lashes because
Right.
it only takes 1 more of his own turns. But actually, unless he draws a way to answer Mirko, actually we'll just lose. So yeah, that was a fairly different result.
So the dragon stays back this turn.
Yeah, it's got a chump here, and Stab Wound does let the dragon survive Mirko. So we've got actually. Looks like a very close finish with.
Scotland's essentially just fighting for the tie here.
That's not a great place to be, but it looks like Assassin Strike will let
Double
South
Devour
Africa.
Flesh and Assassin Strike.
Yeah, they did have their 6th land discarded though.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so. Could actually go for the win here in a pretty funny play. Devour Flesh, if he sacks the Volatile Rig and it loses a coin flip, it blows up the dragon.
Pretty sure he'll just sacrifice the. Well,
Right.
I mean, I guess you just do both Devour Flesh.
Yeah, you just cast both, and you're on a coin flip to win the game. Just a straight up coin flip, and if you win the flip, you win the game. And if you lose the flip, you still have Mirko Vosk versus the dragon, so you're still not losing, and you could still draw a 6th land for Assassin Strike. So I actually like just going for the double Devour Flesh here. Because if you draw a 6th land, you presumably win anyway. Mirko Vosk has 5 toughness, so.
Yeah, it looks like that is the plan South Africa has
That is
puzzled out.
That is not the way I've expected this game to potentially come to a conclusion, but it looks like that is what's happening.
Pass the turn.
Oh, he just passes the turn.
1.
It looks like he's going for it on the upkeep. They could actually wait till Scotland plays a creature, and just while the creature's on the stack, do that. Street Spasm, not really a relevant draw since it doesn't hit flyers.
So 2 lands in a Street Spasm for Alan Hutton, who is at 1. So we're going to see a little coin flippage, and then we're going to see a little top of the deck action if the coin flip doesn't pan out.
Yeah, I mean, South Africa's got a lot of things going in their favor. They get a coin flip to win, and then they get basically another coin flip to win, like slightly worse, is if they draw a land. As they crack their knuckles.
I mean, we've got to get them to 11.
Oh, it looks like they did not go for the Devour Flesh play. That would have been sweet. So now they're just hoping to draw a land. Though they still have the option of Devour Fleshing. I guess you don't actually need to go to the Devour Flesh, because if you draw a land, you presumably just win.
Right.
And if you don't draw a land, you can just go for the Devour Flesh play.
But is there a down? Oh, I guess the downside to the Devour Flesh play is your opponent gains 6 life.
Yeah, and then you don't actually end up killing them, though if they had hit last turn, actually, it might have been able to deck them, because you want 2 hits from the Mirko Vosk there. Yeah, they're counting the number of lands left.
Yeah, the decking doesn't work at this point.
Yeah,
because Alan does not have
turn.
another draw step coming.
So this looks like it's going to be a draw here.
Yeah,
Yeah, so so Mirko right now has 3 power. So you could actually still win if they lose the flip. They take 4. They go up to 7. They take 4, go down to 3, then they get hit for 3. So.
Well, he also has a Keening Apparition in his hand.
Yes.
So he can kill the stab wound, and depending on where we end up on life totals.
If he's sacking the rig straight off, then that's the case. But it looks like that. Yeah, they're going with sacking the roustabout, which is what you want to do first.
Yeah.
The immediate impulse was to sack the rig, but you're not actually dying to the 1,000 lashes because you don't have an upkeep.
Right. There's so many ways he could die next turn, and none of them will happen because there is no next turn.
Tapping mana doesn't actually matter too much. All right. I mean, you're a coin flip to win or draw, so that's a good place to be in, as opposed to being a coin flip to lose or draw.
Oh.
But yeah, then they can of course just sack the dragon and then just get attacked and not actually die. So, yeah, that's actually much better. We're so hung up on the Mirko Vosk having to get blocked, but you can actually just take it.
Right, he goes to 7. Right, he gains 4 life.
And then he's
here.
not getting decked or dying from damage.
Right, and he doesn't lose the 4 that he could potentially lose from the. Oh, that is the right play.
Yeah, for sure. So it looks like these teams are fighting to a standstill.
Bizarre
This was a
sequence
very
of
weird.
cards.
Yeah. So it goes to 7. Then it goes to 4.
Goes through the effort of milling him.
Hey, maybe he decided on all their lands. There's 1, 2,
3.
Yeah. But what if you want to show your sweet deck?
And pass the turn, no trigger.
All right. That was one of the more amusing matches I've ever seen.
If that was a land.
Yeah.
Well, that was a bizarre sequence of events that we just saw. Lots of different things going on between Team South Africa and Team Scotland. It ends in a draw. 1 more point of damage, which would have happened on Alan Hutton's upkeep.
Potentially milling him out had he started a turn earlier with the Mirko Vosk.
Which wouldn't have killed him because he wouldn't have drawn a card because he didn't have another turn. Ran out of turns to kill him. The match ends in a draw, and this will probably throw a real monkey wrench into how this pod plays out.
It'll be interesting to see next round how the pod, like, depending on the other results in the pod and who is the higher seeds. We're going to see, a battle next round one way or the other.
Yeah. So we're going to head back to Studio B, and then I have a feeling we might be looking at Shahar Shenhar and Josh Utter-Layton fighting
we'll find out
for
very soon.
elimination in the 3rd round. We'll see what happens. back to the news desk.
All right, thanks very much, Brian and Louise. There with a terrific round. South Africa and Scotland there basically taking themselves to a standstill. But my math means that looking at the last round there, South Africa will in fact be able to ID their last round against New Zealand. They're both on 4 points coming into the last round. I think that's good news for them. All the scores, all the implications coming up. But first, waiting patiently beside me are two very important people and a huge part of the World Magic Cup here. It is very much welcome Roberto Castillo and the Rookie of the Year, Captain Rookie, Felipe Tapia Becerra, both of Chile. And first of all, guys, congratulations, 2-0 here this morning. You're into the top 16. That must feel great.
Yeah, it feels amazing. Even making day 2 was, we felt it was our first finish line, our first
goal.
checkpoint. But coming into day 2, we were 5-2, pretty strong, 8th place, first seed on our pool, dream position because of the format. We were a little bit worried about return to Ravnica Sealed because it's
very difficult, very complex.
How many grains is unglided? It's very difficult to make this, but we have
an expert deck builder.
Okay, tell us, because our desk isn't big enough here for all 4 of you. Who else is on the team?
We want to recognize, especially in the limited part of the event, to Rodrigo Lopez. He's
amazing.
Without him, I think at 3-0 performance at M14 Limited will have not been possible.
Sure.
And our 2-0 start from today will be a little. Well, no, I think we will have been in big trouble.
Big trouble. All right. And tell us about the 4th member of your team. You have Fabian Lucero. Tell me about him.
Well, Fabian has been a really good teammate. He's very cheerful. He has something like a charisma and a good sense of humor. So
conserva mucho el estado de grupo de nosotros.
He maintains the spirit of team.
The smile, the all connection.
Roberto, where were you when Felipe was becoming Rookie of the Year in San Diego? How did you hear about that?
Well, I was on my home. I was looking at the coverage. Probably multitasking. I was doing something else and watching the coverage. It was pretty insane to see a Latin American and then a Chilean player. But it was important for us because we were looking at the coverage to see who our 3rd team member was. I usually test together with Rodrigo. We were on the team, so we needed to know who was the 3rd and 4th member of our team.
Sure. Felipe, for you, it's now a few months since you've been Rookie of the Year, and that day is now in the past. But how does it feel now? You're in the Captain Rookie t-shirt. Do you still are you aware of what an achievement that was? How does it feel now being Rookie of the Year?
So amazing. This is a dream to many people, to the country, es un orgullo para Latinoamérica.
It's a pride for Latin America.
For sure.
Porque you live a dream. Tú vives un sueño. Tú deseas todos los días, maybe all days, to dream for first step, gain a pro release. The 2 step, maybe the PTQ.
Sure, you work your way up.
Step by step. This is the moment, the step by step. With a team, the first step is make day 2. We won there. The second step is
top 16.
Top 16,
we got there.
And continue.
And of course now, because you are 2-0, if you win your next match, you were already a number 1 seed. You would be 1 seed again in the next pod. So a big match coming up for you. Thank you very much for speaking to us in English.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. But we would like to give you the opportunity. Would you like to say something to all the Latin America fans and all the Chilean fans? Your boys are doing fantastic work. Something for them in their own language.
Para todos. Es simple, todo se puede. Tienen que luchar y tener la suerte de tratar de hacerlo todos los días. Y esto es algo que uno desea, que uno disfruta. Es el sueño de todos, el
Pero
sueño mío,
también-
el sueño de...
Sí, también es importante agradecer a todos los que nos ayudaron, nos prestaron su ayuda, nos
Sí.
ayudaron a probar distintas variantes, incluso nos facilitaron cartas.
Muchas gracias Hugo Castro, porque siempre ha estado ahí apoyándome.
A Team Armada, nuestro team de allá en Chile y la Forja de Stone,
Congrats.
la tienda
And
local.
thanks to all people in Latin America.
I think the gist of that, I don't speak a lot of that language, but I think the gist was we're doing quite well. We love Chile, we love Latin America, we love Magic, and white in M14
Yeah.
isn't actually terribly good. I think that's roughly what they said.
All is
right.
possible.
All
is
is
possible.
possible.
Yeah.
It is. And one thing that is certain, not just a possibility, is that these two and Rodrigo Lopez and Fabian Lucero will be back in the second set of pool play in the top 16. Guys, thank you so much for coming in. Let me tell you what is going on here in the World Magic Cup. Thanks to the boys, I promised you all the results. I'm going to take you through pool by pool with what's going on here at the World Magic Cup. So let's start off with pool number 1. So we begin. Ireland, Estonia, Croatia and Malaysia. Now, this is very straightforward. As a result of Ireland defeating Croatia and Estonia losing to Malaysia, they are all at 1 win. The pairings for this third and final round see the top against the bottom and the middle two paired. That's the same across all 8 pods. Ireland play Malaysia and Estonia play Croatia. So very simply, the winners of those 2 matches will advance. It is that straightforward in that one. Okay, I'm going to take you to pod 2, and this is a little bit complicated, but it goes something like this. Singapore have 1 point courtesy of a loss and a draw. South Africa have 4 points courtesy of a win and the draw that you just saw against Scotland. Scotland have just that draw to their name. New Zealand have a win and then a draw. The pairings in the last round, as I say, top against bottom, middle 2. So Singapore against Scotland, well, obviously the winner there has to hope that somehow 4 points can do something for them. But as far as I can see, it looks to me like South Africa and New Zealand may be able to congratulate each other and simply say, let's have a point each. They will go to 5 points, and the winner of Singapore-Scotland, well, they will just get to 4. So by my reckoning, if South Africa and New Zealand do the same counting method I'm using, they may well decide to ID. Let's take you, oh my goodness gracious me, to pool 3, and I've got Zach Hill here with me. Zach, last time I checked, you were an American. Set up for me the big matchup of the World Magic Cup, the one that we all want to see. It's Venezuela against Greece.
Venezuela against Greece is going to be a good match, but the one I'm focusing on
Go on, I'll let
is
you.
the match between 2 people who are in the finals of the World Championship right now, and that would be the captains of both Israel and the United States.
So that's Josh Utter-Leighton, your Player of the Year. He's back tomorrow in the semi-finals. He is not only the captain of the team in the way that Shahar Shenhar of Israel is, the way the pairings have worked, they are seated for a head-on collision. It is captain against captain. You couldn't make it up. So that's fantastic stuff. And that Venezuela against Greece is an incredibly important match for those 2 countries. Straightforwardly, again, like Pool 1, the winner of that match just goes in. 2 win-and-ins in Pool 3. Let's take you to Pool 4. Not so much drama here, but you see those little stars, and the stars this time around are France and Belgium. Now, to be honest, they did look like the 2 powerhouse teams. Cécile Champling, Steve Haddo, the Thai and Luxembourg captains there, but they have both lost their opening 2 matches, and as a result of top playing bottom and the middle 2 playing against each other, Belgium have overcome their 4th seeding. They will advance. Vincent Lemoyne, Moraine Libert and so on up against a powerhouse team in France, but it won't matter the outcome except for seeding. Seeding matters. Remember, your overall result contributes to where you'll get seeded. We'll tell you all about that lunchtime. But let's move on. 4 pods done. Let's look at pod number 5. Now, in pool number 5, this gets a little bit complicated. As you can see, Austria, David Reitbauer, Thomas Holzinger, they are in straightforwardly with their 2 wins. Now, I'm afraid England are done. Congratulations to Carrie Oliver, Roy Raftery and the team for making it into day 2. Good job, but will not advance to the top 16. What about the two who can in the group of death? It's Hungary and El Salvador. Now, Hungary, it's straightforward. If the Hungarians win, Thomas Nag and co, that's in. Hungary just needs to win against England, done. El Salvador, well, they will need to beat the Austrians, no mean feat in and of itself, and the Austrians won't lie down, Zach, because they know seeding matters.
Exactly.
And then Hungary have to lose to England. So right now, if you're in El Salvador, your new best friends, England. Let's move to pod number 6 and see what's going on here. Well, this one is done. This is pretty straightforward, I can tell you, because Iceland have done the business. They're up to 4 points. It's a bit of a complicated looking group, but the way it works is that Australia have lost both of their matches. Slovenia down there at the bottom with they can't now get in there. So what we are ultimately looking at is Iceland and Brazil will advance. They play each other in the last round. I had a fascinating interview with one of the Iceland players just at the end of this round. He said, Rich, I just wanted to come and say, haha, we're in, basically, was the gist. They are very pleased with themselves and with good cause. Iceland in the top 16. Pool 7, let's get you there nice and quick. This is the complicated one because the Czech Republic, they are in, but everyone else has math to do. Mexico, you are in with a win and a Turkish loss. Turkey, you are in with a win or Mexico losing. And Ukraine, you need a win and a Turkish loss. Finally, pool number 8, let's take a look there. It's all done. Chile and Belarus are in. The top seed, the bottom seed, the big two in that field should have been the Slovak Republic and Finland. They are both gone. And we are gone from the news desk because we are going to settle in and we're not going anywhere, I can tell you. I'm sitting right here to watch this match because this is pure box office. It's the final round of stage 1 of pool play on day 4 of Worlds Week, day 2 of the World Magic Cup. And it is time for the straight up, honest to God shootout. No prisoners, no mercy, and somebody goes home right now. It's Team USA against Team Israel. Let's get to the booth. Louis Scott Vargas and first, Brian David Marshall.